The opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the hosts and guests, and do not represent the views of any Grand Lodge nor appendant body of Freemasonry.
Welcome, everybody, to another monthly episode of Masonic Shelf Shorts. Great Masonic education in 10 minutes or less. I am Chris Williams.
And my name is Brad Kohanke, and tonight we have a very special guest. It is Brother Pete Norman, and he has been talking to me about a story he wrote several years ago called King Solomon's Yacht Club, and I'm very excited for him to present that to you this evening. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
It's the story of a young man who is new in town. He has a new job, and he's going to work every day, but he wants to do something other than just go to work every day and go home. So he meets somebody at work that's a member of the King Solomon Yacht Club, and that sounded interesting to him. He had a sailboat when he was a boy, and so he thought it would be fun to join this yacht club. So his friend invites him to go to the next monthly meeting of the yacht club, and they have fried fish and French fries with their wives, and they have a business meeting. They read the minutes of the old meeting, and they have a treasurer's report, and a couple of committee reports, and so on and so on. And at one point, the skipper of the club asks for any new members to come forward. Well, he goes to the front, and they stand him up in front of everybody, and the skipper asks him the customary test question: what do you most desire? And he's caught completely off guard, so he has to think for a minute, and finally he says, to sail. Well, that's the right answer. And everybody jumps up, and they raise their styrofoam cups of watered down iced tea, and they toast him, and they sing Anchors Away, and they slap him on the back, and they all welcome him to the club. And the skipper pulls him aside and says, now, you're a new member, so you're going to have to come down to the docks every Saturday, because we have an old boat that's in dry dock that we're working on, and we need you to come work on it. So he's excited. He goes down there Saturday morning, and they put him to work scraping the barnacles off the hull, and he spends the entire day doing that. And he comes back a week later, and he paints the hull from stem to stern. And on the third Saturday, they put him up on the deck polishing all the bright work, all the little pieces of brass, all the fittings all over the deck. And some of these pieces of bright work no longer serve any real purpose, but everybody else has polished them, so he has to polish them as well. And then on the fourth Saturday, he replaces all the lines and ropes all over the boat. And on the fifth Saturday, he comes a little early because he knows this boat is now ready to go in the water, and he wants to go sailing. And when he gets there, the skipper says, sailing? This is no time for play, my boy. And they hand him the same bucket of rags, and they put him back to work, polishing the same bright work that he's already polished before. And he soon realizes that these guys don't know how to sail. All they know how to do is scrape barnacles and polish bright work. So he loses interest in a sailing club that does not sail, and he quits. And a month or so later, he meets another guy that's a member of the Blue Skies Flying Club. And he thinks to himself, that'd be, I'd like to go to ground school and maybe learn how to fly and get my license and everything else. So he goes with his friend to the next meeting of the Blue Skies Flying Club, and they have barbecue with their wives, and they have a business meeting. They read the minutes, they have a treasurer's report, and they pay the bills and committee reports, et cetera, et cetera. And at one point, the captain of the club asks for any new members. Well, he jumps up and goes to the front, and they stand him up, and the captain asks him the customary test question: What do you most desire? Well, this time he's not caught completely off guard, so he only has to think for a moment, and then he answers, to fly. Well, that's the right answer. So everybody jumps up and they all raise their styrofoam cups of watered down iced tea, and they all toast him and sing Off We Go into the Wild Blue Yonder. And they pat him on the back, shake his hand, welcome him to the club. But he soon learns that they don't have an old airplane, an old, you'd think they'd have an old B-29 or something that they're working on, but they don't. And he's disappointed. They don't teach ground school. In fact, he learns that nobody in the club has an active pilot's license. So he comes up with an idea, and he says, why don't we have a program at every monthly meeting where we have guest speakers come, and they could talk about, they could talk about the Battle of Britain, or they could talk about the Black Sheep Squadron in the Pacific, or they could talk about the Lafayette Escadrille during World War I. Or, the list goes on and on and on. There's all kinds of great stories. 30 Seconds Over Tokyo. There's all kinds of great stories about airplanes that you could have programs for forever. And they listen to him patiently. And finally, they say to him, son, look, we don't care anything about airplanes, and we don't care anything about flying. The only thing we care about is our annual domino tournament that we host every year. Well, he realizes that these guys don't know how to fly, and they don't care anything about airplanes, and there's no point in belonging to a flying club that does not fly, so he quits. And about a month or so later, he meets a guy at work who is a Mason. And he says to himself, wow, both my grandfathers were Masons and my father was a Mason. My uncles were all Masons. I've always wanted to know what it is that Masons know. I'd love to join the lodge and get Masonic light. So his friend invites him to come to a meeting, and they go through all the rigmarole, the paperwork, whatever they do. And they have spaghetti on paper plates with green beans with their wives. And then all the Masons get up and go into the lodge room. They have a business meeting, leave him outside. And at some point, he's brought into the room. He's blindfolded. They bring him in. And at one point during the ceremony, the worshipful master asks him the customary test question. What do you most desire? Well, this time he's not caught off guard at all. And he answers forthrightly, without hesitation, without prompting. And that's the end of the story, because we don't know if he joined your lodge or my lodge or some other lodge. Did he join one of these lodges that has turned itself into a clone of a Lions Club? Or did he join a real Masonic lodge? And I hope that he joined a real Masonic lodge. And yet it seems like a lot of lodges don't hear that. They don't get it. And they don't give him what he asked for. Freemasonry is the one thing that we're all supposed to be interested in, that we all have in common. And yet I've been to lodges where meeting after meeting after meeting, there's no Freemasonry at all.